I don't know if you guys can hear me over the cicadas or not, but hey,
Hey, we're just now getting warm enough for them to all come out here.
wow.
Yeah, I was just in Nashville and trying to get home. They were like all over my windshield.
I mean, it's. I just keep looking out my window and looking at the plague and thinking, man, that's just biblical.
Yeah, Tina told me her dog goes out in the morning. He eats his food in the kitchen, then goes out and has a second breakfast on cicadas.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're not too bad over here where I am. Not yet, anyway.
well, that's good. It's the
Yeah,
plague here.
yeah, it's crazy. I was in Green Hills and I rolled my windows down just to hear, and yeah, they were like, oh, they're everywhere over there. It was
Awesome.
nuts. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So
we're
you
gonna
got,
have a good conversation today.
well, we need to introduce Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly. Jonathan Sanders is our video production. Um, is there anything after that? Specialist?
He
What are
is
we?
our digital media specialist. He
Thank
does
you.
stuff in video and photography and helps with social and all kinds of stuff. So,
Yeah, the term "jack of all trades" gets thrown around liberally.
Yeah.
well,
Well, you are our um, longest employee. I mean, you were the first employee that we ever hired, and have been with us the longest of anyone. So, um, but yeah, it's video is a large part of what you do, and that's going to be the subject that we're talking about today. So,
Yeah.
uh,
here we go.
I'll
So,
let you control it. Sorry,
huh?
sorry, never mind.
Were you trying to control my job? Were you trying
I
to do your job?
I was wondering why it wasn't up, so I was going to put it up, but you beat me to it.
Well, there you go. So, video marketing strategies, engaging your audience on YouTube. So a lot of people they do a lot of posting on YouTube, but it's so random and there's just so it's crazy. So I think figuring out how to kind of build the audience you want and then engage them, I think is really awesome. So, but Jonathan, I'm going to ask you to give us a definition and overview of video marketing.
Well, just off the top of my head, the video marketing is showcasing what you can do and the problems you can solve for your potential customer, and putting that in front of them in places where they will view it, such as Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, those kinds of things. That's the what I would call it in a nutshell.
Okay, Carter, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, specifically video. I mean, we've just got to talk about the popularity of video, and I know we've mentioned this in previous episodes of Spark Live, but there was a time when video, everybody would say, oh, this, video is gonna. I can see a time when it's gonna take over the world, and then there was kind of this moment where it just didn't seem like it was growing a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know, it was around the time that Facebook and TikTok really, the short form videos really started taking off. And now it's just like that's all the web is, the socials especially, is just
Yeah.
video, 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 one after another. If you're not doing video, especially on social media, then you're missing a lot of opportunities, and engagement is just going to be much lower because you're competing against a really dynamic medium that you know if you can't compete with that, and they're gonna skip over your little text or your little image, and they're gonna look for the stuff that's like moving and ooh shiny. So
And the dancing, bears and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I get it. So I'm going to ask this question before we move on, because some people will say YouTube is a search engine, and other people will say YouTube is a social platform. What is it?
I would say both.
That's
yeah,
what I think too. Yeah.
I use YouTube for just personally, and I'm a younger Gen X, and so in my generation and age group, it can go either way. But even in my world, when I would need instruction, actually YouTube and watch music videos. I mean, it's such a wide use. It can be used in so many different ways. And people like to say YouTube's dead. It's not dead for the small marketer, for sure.
Yeah, I actually love YouTube. A couple of weeks ago, I was mowing my lawn, and I looked down, and it's like there's no grass coming out of this thing. And then I look behind me, and I'm like, I'm not cutting anything. So I turned the mower off, and I, raised it up and looked at it, and the belt came loose, and I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like 4 in the afternoon, and I really need to get this done. Know it's going to mow the next day, and it's already like, up to my ankles, past my ankles, and I got to get this done. So I, took it to the garage and said, oh, I don't know. I have no idea how to fix this thing. And it was like, oh, I bet there's somebody on YouTube. So sure enough, I put in the brand and I said, here's the brand I mow, and I need to know how do you fix the belt? How do you rewind the belt thing? And I mean, it was hard to do, just the strength that you had to have. Man, I had to do some like, I'm like, I could go back to the gym and, take some stuff. But yeah, and I had it done in about 30 minutes and back on the mower and finished. So that's what I love it for. Anything that I need to find out that I have no idea why this is happening, I go to YouTube. So it's a great place, but it's also a place where people go and find services.
That's
They
right.
want to know what does this service do? What is, what if somebody comes and does this thing, what are they going to be doing in my house? And they get to see that. So I think it's great.
Well, take a look. Take a look. For example, clients we've done with one thing we like to do is get them demonstrating for our clients that work in chimney and hearth is how to light a pilot light.
Yeah.
They don't want to have to call. Customers do not want to have to call and say, "Hey, can you come light my pilot?" every time they want to do that. They much prefer to do it themselves. And that demonstration will not only display your expertise, but it also says, hey, these people were helpful. I'm going to call these people when I need something more advanced.
No, that's absolutely right. I think that's great. So here's one of the things that I think is really, really important. So when if like as a marketing company, we have to set our clients' expectations. What are they going to actually get out of YouTube? But if you're doing it on your own, what should they expect from doing YouTube?
Well, I can answer that really quickly. There's several different things. You shouldn't expect to go viral if you're a home service company. I don't even think I can name on one finger an example of a home service company that had a video that truly went viral. I've seen a lot of attempts and I've seen a lot of, good ideas, but it's just not the kind of content that's created purely for entertainment value. And so I think you need to set the expectation that people are going to find you when they're doing a search for something related to, like, how do I do X? How do I do the following things? And those are all things that you can do for clients and you can show them and give them your expertise. So, I would say the tutorial or how-to videos where you're showing people how to DIY are probably going to be your best bet to bring attention to your brand. And you might think that that's counterintuitive. Like, why would I teach somebody how to do what I do? Then they don't need me. But we all know that there are people out there who just want to know what to expect. Like, how difficult is this? And what is it going to do? It's going to set price expectations about how difficult it is to do, or how much they don't want to get dirty and do that work, and how willing they are suddenly to give you a call to have you do that work. And now, because they understand all that's involved in that work, they're not going to push back on your price. They're going to go, yeah, that makes sense. That's in line with what I would expect. I mean, I'm getting value at that price, so that's fine. So those are all the things I would think in terms of setting an expectation. Those are things that video for a home service business can accomplish.
And I would say too, um, it is about brand awareness, but it's not real typically about is lead generation. And I think if you think about it as a lead generator, I think you're going to be disappointed. But
Mhm.
if you look at it as as a vehicle for people to get to know not only who your company is, but who you are as whoever the face of your company is, whether it's you, the owner, whether it's a key employee, but whomever it is, um, letting the people in that would use your service get to know who you are. That's where when you can view it as a success, not as bringing in calls.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I'm going to take a minute. You guys that are tuning in, if you guys could give us a thumbs up, a heart, that would be awesome. Um, because, YouTube is also a Google property. So here's one of the things that I like to tell people is when you have a really active YouTube channel, Google notices that. I mean, there is just something about, Google having those properties. And so if they're related, it's all good. Anything you can do on Google and give Google a little juju juice, then that's always a good thing. Hey, Chris Miller, it's nice to see you here. Thanks for the thumbs up. Really appreciate that. But I think that's another thing that I expect is it does help you in the Google verse, if you will, when you have a really good channel. Now, I'm not going to say if you go in there and put one thing in, every 6 months, it's probably not going to help you. But if you have an active channel and really working at things, I think that's different.
Well, before we move on, let's talk about, because I mean, right now we've just talked about YouTube as a Google property and all of that, but there are definitely other places where video makes a lot of sense for businesses to be. Facebook immediately comes to mind. It's a great place for video for businesses. TikTok, I've seen a lot of businesses have success there. Yeah, I'm less familiar with the TikTok strategy than I am with Google and Facebook. But what I'm curious, John, what are your thoughts about posting to, like, having a multi-platform approach to that marketing so that you're putting video in multiple places? Is that helpful?
I would say so, and I'd also say that you can't the surefire way to not get a lot of traction across the board would be to post the exact same thing on every channel. And so different thing like TikTok is probably got a different audience than say even Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels. And so you want to craft a strategy for each one. And one of the ways that you can help yourself, like in this case, if you're, let's say we wanted to market this video we're doing right now, there are certain AI tools that can help you chop that up into video that is helpful across multiple platforms. So in this case, this longer form interview video would work great on YouTube, but would go horribly on TikTok. No one's going to watch it. However, by chopping it up into topics and into shorter segments, I'd say no more than 90 seconds, but probably 60 is a much better. 60 seconds is probably a better, if you can fit it in there, and getting that posted. Those are the things that if it's a topic, especially that people are searching for, you can do very well that way.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think, after you craft a really effective video, if you do a long form video, then don't feel like you have to go back and do little short bursts of things for all the other, platforms, because you can, these AI tools will cut it for Facebook, and then they'll cut it for Instagram, and then they'll cut it, for whatever. And it really lends itself really well because you do it one time, and even though the content is related, it's not exact.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. I mean, it's not like you don't reuse the content in everywhere. You're just putting different things on the different places. So I think that's really important. Lou Curley's in the house. Mike Ellis is here. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate y'all being here. That's fantastic. So let's talk about crafting an effective some effective video content. All right, I'm going to go first. All right, because here's one of the things that we run into when we go on shoots is people say, "Oh, do you have a script for me?" Well, no, I don't have a script. Now, if you were an actor, or if we had something that we were actually scripting out and doing a commercial or something like that, absolutely you want a script. But when you're running and gunning, and what that means is you're actually following people doing work. Okay, there is no script, because what you're doing is you're actually getting the job done at that place. So you're wanting the real thing. And so the other thing I find, if you sit down and do an interview with people who are very well versed in what they know, if you script them, it messes them up, because they're trying to read what you've put, something that they've written or you've written down. And a lot of times it's much more effective for them to just talk off the cuff, because they're telling you what they do for a living, the stuff they do every single day.
Yeah, we're not trying to recreate this old house,
Exactly.
Leave the scripts and the well staged, progression of a project for the Bob Vilas of the world and the like, because it's a very difficult thing to do, and it's a whole different talent set than So yeah, I agree. I think it's a format choice, but it's one that will serve you pretty well.
Well, especially in home service business, because it's just, you're fast paced, you're moving, you're going from job to job, you're doing different things. And so, documenting those things is really what's really important, because that's what people want to see. Now, if you want to do something like, I don't know, Squatty Potty, or the people that did the Shave Club, I think is the other one, that they really went all out, and they had locations, and I mean, it was almost like a mini movie, both of those things. So
it was a full-blown commercial.
Yeah. And if you want to do that, then script it, work it out, all that kind of stuff. But that's a different model than showing people what you actually do. That's really entertaining and getting people interested in buying your stuff.
Right.
As opposed to, a service that you do. So I'm going to start there about crafting effective video content. You got to know what kind of content that you want to do. That's number one. And Linda Roydhouse, thanks for being here. Appreciate you as well. It's awesome. So what do you guys, go ahead.
I would think, for one, you need to stay within who you are, personality wise. I think if you try to emulate something you've seen on YouTube, it's not going to come off right. It'll probably be more of a turn off. And so that's number one. Number two is, most of you have spent a ton of time training, and your craft very well. So the more you practice doing this, the more you will get better at just saying what it is you know. And I think that's the kind of thing that makes people also more comfortable as they're watching you. Because how many of us, we can only watch The Office so many times before the cringe factor gets to us and we just can't finish it. Just be who you are instead of trying to be somebody else.
Yeah. This morning on Good Morning America, I'm trying to think of her first name, but Coolidge is her last name. Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh, yeah.
Did a commencement speech, and they showed part of the commencement speech. And what she said is, when she would go in on an audition and try to be anybody else but her, she got turned down every time. And what she realized, what people wanted was her, the authentic her. So go out and be the authentic you, because that is what people are looking for. And I think that alone is a huge lesson. When we do video, don't try to be somebody you're not. Just be you.
That's true.
Because you're good enough.
I agree. I would also say, be the best version of you, right? So, maybe in other words, if you are like me and Taylor, and you like to ramble and you talk a lot. I'll speak for myself especially. Um, you know, tighten it up. Figure out exactly what the goal is of your video. Know exactly what it is you want to be able to present to people, and quickly get into it. Right. I mean, you don't have to do some fancy scripted anything, but you got to quickly communicate what it is that you're there to do. And so that's important, to keep in mind. So be yourself, but be the best version of yourself that you can be, relating to the kind of content that you're trying to produce.
I'd throw in there too. Explain it like, say you're explaining how to light a pilot light, or explaining an aspect that's highly technical in the job that you do. Explain it to the audience like I would explain something video wise to my wife or my mother. I'm not going to go into how I messed with the aperture and the lighting situation and a lot of other technical factors that are going to cause her to glaze over and just give me that smile when she's humoring me. Explain it, not dumb it down, but just explain it in very basic terms that most people can understand.
Yeah, 5th grade to 8th grade level.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what everybody says. 5th to 8th grade, somewhere around there. If you can do that, you got it made. It's great.
Mike asks, what if your authentic self doesn't video well? And I think that's a fair question.
Yeah.
There are absolutely, there's two things I want to address. Number one is you're probably better than you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is, practice. I mean, the more you do something, the better you become at it. And you'll never become better at it unless you start doing it. Any of the big hits, in terms of people who are creating regular content on a platform like Facebook or social media or TikTok or YouTube, they're great. And you watch their most recent videos and you're like, gosh, they're just amazing. I'll never be that good. I challenge you to go back to the very beginning if they've still got them, like the original posts that they put out that were, the first things that the channel ever produced. And you'll immediately see that there's been an evolution of skill that's been built over the period of time that they've been building their channel. So you've really got to just get out there and do it. I think that's the key is, practice.
Well, when you say, the other thing is when somebody says, I don't do video well, really what I hear is, I don't like what I'm looking at after I do video. I don't like I don't like the way I talk. I don't like the way I look. I don't like something about me in that video. And I totally understand that. I don't know of anybody that actually gets on video and says, oh, I love the way I talk. I love the way I look. I just love everything about, what I'm doing here. Yes. Because we are all our own worst critics, every single one of us. And I would just say there are some things, in order to move forward, you just have to move forward. And it's a fear of being seen. And it's a fear of somebody not, looking at you and feeling the same thing that you feel. But what I think what happens is we feel worse about ourselves than most people do when they watch us. And if you really have something important to say, that's what people will tune into. It's not about how you look. It's not about how country you talk, because I know I talk country. And, that's one of my biggies that I hate when I hear myself. And the fact that I sound like my brother, which is really crazy how much we sound alike. But yeah, everybody's got something. So you just have to overcome some things. And I hate the term where the people say, well, tough it up and just, get on with it. But there are times you just have to do it enough to where you're just saying, yeah, I just need to get this done because it's important. So I'm going to do it.
What one of the things that helped me the most, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, is getting up and talking to people in BNI. So there are plenty of business networking groups. That's just one. But I had to I had to talk in front of people every week, and I was terrified. And that there's a similar fear attached for me personally about being behind or in front of the camera, which is why I gravitate toward the back behind the camera. And the repetitiveness of doing that actually helped me be less afraid of being in front of the camera.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Very good. So let's talk about production quality, because I hear this a lot too. Is I don't have a camera. I don't have the right this. I don't have the right that. I don't have yada yada yada. And years ago, I would say, oh yeah, you got to have this camera or that camera. Now I'm like, yeah, you're fine. You got a phone. If you got the latest couple of generations of phone, you're all right. Learn to use your phone, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. But there's a caveat here, and it's audio. So let's talk about audio for a minute, because that's what I see on phones a lot of times that gets lost is audio.
Well, I would say, and Carter, I'd love to get your opinion too on this, but what I find is if there's not a lot of wind, if you don't have a lot going on around you, you can, especially in enclosed spaces like in a house where you're displaying something, you can get by with a lot of just your onboard camera. A lot of times, where you might want to get something external, and they make a lot of really good, really inexpensive mics that will plug right into your phone, is outside. Say you're up on a chimney, or you're out by an HVAC unit and there's a lot of noise going on. It can really help to have that external mic. You can clip them to there's wireless ones that you can clip it to your shirt, and then it's plugged into your phone and no one ever sees that. I mean, they can see the thing clipped to your shirt, but that's about it. Those are really simple because they're just plug and play.
And they're not real expensive.
No.
They've come down in price a considerable amount. Yeah, I agree. I think if you're in a quiet room, a small office or a small bedroom, or even your living room with no other distractions or noises, then you're probably fine to get acceptable audio directly from your phone. But almost any other application outdoors, if you're more than say 5 feet away from your phone, you're definitely going to benefit from having a microphone as an accessory to capture better audio. Absolutely. The closer the microphone is to you, the better the quality of the audio. So the further, if you're relying on your phone microphones, the further that microphone is away from you, or the more other noise that's impinging on the environment, the more those microphones are going to have a hard time picking you up clearly and distinguishing you from the background noise. And you're just not going to end up with something that you're happy with. So, $30 will go a long way towards solving the audio issue.
Well, and also if you're one caveat to the being inside is if you're in a warehouse, there's going to be so much echo there that you're going to want a mic. If you're in a carpeted living room, that's where you might really be okay, or inside your truck or something like that.
Yeah. Cars are a great place. I mean, your onboard microphone on your phone is probably going to be just fine for,
right.
If you're sitting in your car.
Right.
Yeah. And the only other thing I want to say about production quality, especially if you're in a business where you have, this is what it looked like before and you fix it, and now this is what it looks like after. Make sure you take the video or take the photos or whatever from the same vantage point, because people a lot of times they're not with you, and so they don't see that what direction you're coming from. But I've been told that, and I've even got pictures that people say this is a before and after, and I look at it and go, doesn't look like it's a before and after, because it's from totally different vantage points.
Right.
It looks totally different. So just make sure that if you do before and afters, get from the same vantage point, whether it's video or a photo.
Well, in some cases, use some gaffer's tape, commonly referred to as painter's tape, I guess, too. and put it down on the ground somewhere, wherever you're taking the before picture, and just go back to it.
Yeah.
Shoot that afterward.
Yeah. It's great advice.
Probably got that from you, didn't I?
Yeah. That's why it's great advice. Content ideas and strategies.
You know, I mean, we say it a lot, but they ask you answer. I mean, just answer the questions that you get all the time.
Yeah.
The frequently asked questions that you've gotten since day one that you started your business. You know what those questions are. You hear them all the time. In fact, you may have forgotten the questions because you're in the habit of answering them before they get asked, right? I mean, that's how proficient we become at anticipating those frequently asked questions, and we forget that they get asked a lot. But pay attention to the questions that you get asked. Any one of those questions could make a great subject for a video.
Yeah. And I would say this too. There's so much industrial speak that happens that I see sometimes people that I feel like, wow, what they're really out to do is impress everybody with their knowledge. People don't care about you being impressive with your knowledge. They care about whether you know what you're talking about and can fix their problem.
Yeah.
So make sure they understand that.
Also, I mean, there are lots of sources right in your business, especially if you've got someone that answers the phones for you, who is writing down, who's actually talking to the customers. One of the things that you can do is, what are the questions they're getting? That's the front line. That's who gets, when they're calling, that's the first person they start describing and pouring their heart out about what the problem is. What questions are they getting all the time? And then just answer those. I mean, you might get 6 months worth of topics right there.
Yeah, no, that's good advice.
Easily.
Let's talk a little bit about targeting and budgeting. You know, this people say, you know, do I have to spend a lot of money and get a whole crew out here with lights and yada yada yada? It depends. You might want to do that depending on what you're wanting to do. But you know, if you're small, you work within your budget. That's my deal. Work within your budget. You know, if you want to do something big, then start pulling money out of your, you know, main account and put it in a, you know, a video. I do accounts. I was laughing at myself. I have 7 personal bank accounts and people laugh at me all the time, but that's what I do. I pull money out of, this is going to go here and that's going to go there. And, you know, we have things that we're going to do with each one of those. So it's the same thing in a business. I mean, if there's something you really want to do, pull the money out and put it aside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Budgets are there is no right number to shoot for. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And you can accomplish amazing things, just you and your phone on the job every day, videoing what you come across, the problems that you're solving, and how you're helping customers, you know, live the life they want. And you're not going to spend much of any money. It's just time. You know, it's the time that it takes to shoot the video, and then the time it takes to post it to the places that you want it to be visible to people. But even that can gain a lot of traction. And I've seen that gain traction with, you know, several thousand people that tune in to a plumber who just goes into people's homes and fixes really disgusting problems, because people like they're it's like the train wreck you can't look away from. They just are intrigued by it, and they will sit there and watch hours of it. So, you know, I mean, you don't have to spend a whole lot of money. The main thing though is targeting. Who are you looking to put your content in front of, and how do you get in front of them? There's some ways to be able to promote your content on these platforms that can help you put it in front of people that are likely to become your customers. Because ultimately, you don't want the guy who's like, you know, the gorophile who wants to, you know, look at the messes and the disgusting things because that's just what they enjoy doing as a hobby. That person may or may not ever become your customer. What you're looking for is the person who, you know, is actively looking to solve one of their problems and is wondering if it might be something that they could do on their own before they call you to hire you. And so those are the people you want to get in front of. So that's a big subject, like how to target, how to get in front of the right audience. probably left better for another episode at some point to really talk about targeting. But it is a good idea to have that in mind, like who your audience is that you're creating that content for when you create it.
And then talk to those people.
Yes.
The video.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. No matter whatever your target audience is, no matter what platform you're on, talk to that target audience. Even if only 5 people find you, they're the right 5. I mean, that's and so that goes back to expectations. You know, people have this huge expectation of things. So here's the other thing I want to talk about that's not on here, but I think it's worthy of just mentioning. Each one of these platforms have algorithms, and the algorithms do different things. And I will tell you, I know Facebook, they're not showing you near what the way they used to. They just don't do it. I don't know about Instagram and TikTok. I know TikTok shows you if you're interested in things. So you have to pick in the beginning all your interests, and then it shows you video after video. And the more videos you scroll through and spend time on, the more of those they show you. So, you know, I understand that that's how theirs work. I'm not 100% sure how Instagram works. I don't know, Jonathan or Carter, if y'all know how that works.
My experience is, well, I'll give you a great example. In the lead up to getting married, my now wife is sending me wedding memes constantly. Well, guess what fills my feed now, even after I've been married, is wedding related memes and all that. So that's, I think I find Instagram is really related to interest.
Yeah, that's what TikTok is too.
Yeah.
Where, you know, Facebook was supposed to be all about your friends, but I'm not sure that's what they are now.
Right.
And I mean, we're on Facebook right now, so you know, I'm not against Facebook. I'm just saying the algorithms are all different. So part of the expectations of what you have to know is kind of how the algorithm works.
Right.
Mike says, short of replacing batteries in a remote, I don't think I want customers doing what I do. It wouldn't end well. Yeah, and same here. I mean, there's you know, a lot about digital marketing, especially when you get into the SEO and the technical SEO especially, that's not for the faint of heart and requires quite a bit of training and everything else in order to really do well and not get hurt. So, you know, I get that. But again, there are people who just need to know, you know, like, I need this done, but if I can save $500 and do it myself, I want to at least learn what's involved before I make my decision about whether I'm going to call someone. So that's what a lot of the DIY ends up being. You're not really teaching people how to do the work that you do. You're teaching people that it's complicated and it's worth paying you to do what you do. That's what you're teaching them. So that's the subtext anyway that you're trying to get across. So, you know, I wouldn't worry too much about actually convincing many people to go try, you know, what you're showing them in the videos.
Right.
Well, and the thing that happens is the first time that I took a class about mortar, I said, yeah, I'll never do this. It was the first deal. I mean, it was Chris Pryor, who I know that there are people out there that don't know Chris. He's a master mason, and had the opportunity. I just said, hey, can I come to your class? And he said, yeah, come on. And so I went to his class, and I mean, pretty much the whole first part of the class was nothing more than how to mix mortar for the different things. So, you know, everything gets mixed differently for the different stuff. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I don't want to do this. You know, it's just too much physics, too much math, all that kind of stuff in it. So yeah, it was interesting. And that's really what happens when people say, oh, I want to do this, and they start talking about it, and then they find out what's involved, and it's like, yeah, I don't really want to do that.
Well, Mike's asking the great questions today. Should you get errors and omission insurance? So I would say, beside the fact of you doing video, any business should be carrying errors and omissions insurance. I just think it's one of those types of liability insurances that is a good idea to have in this litigious modern world. With regard to how that applies to your video content, Yeah, it's probably a good idea. But again, I would state a disclaimer at the beginning of any video that you're actually showing people how to do something, and say, this is something that I've done for years and I'm a trained professional at. If you do not know how to do this work, then, please consult with someone who can guide you through this, or, something to that effect. Please consult an expert on site to be able to help you complete this work. Something along those lines will go a long way towards satisfying the insurance's requirements with regard to whether or not you've covered all your bases with those contingencies.
Yeah, and even with us, we have a regular errors and omission insurance policy, but we have a special policy that is about digital marketing. It's digital things. So if something goes wrong on an ad platform or something, and we cause harm to anybody, then we actually have insurance in place that would help us cover that. So that's kind of one of those things too, that you just have to see what you're doing and then kind of go from there. So, man, we went 42 minutes. We went long, but it was a good long. So, Jonathan, thanks so much for being with us. Really do appreciate it. Spark Live is also released as a podcast. It's on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Podvine, or your favorite player. And we're going to be back next week, and we're going to talk about knowing your audience. So there are some really good things that you can do to actually pinpoint your audience and really get to know your audience. And we're going to talk about those things. So that's it. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.